Raise your hand if you know someone that has contemplated or committed suicide. Did you know that 90% of people who commit suicide suffered from a mental illness? Mentally ill people are currently burdened from fighting two battles. The first battle is against symptoms of their mental illness that affect their day-to-day life. And the second battle is against the stigma of that mental illness. 1 in 5 Americans have a mental illness. Yet, in 55% of counties across America, there is not one practicing psychiatrist. Although mental illness is the most pressing of these illnesses, physical illness always seems to have a leg up on it in terms that you can see someone who has broken their leg, someone who is bleeding, someone who is sick, but you can't always see a mental illness, and it lies invisible, so sometimes it flies under the radar and it gets less attention and awareness than it should. Almost half of all children who struggle with a mental health disorder do not receive the care they need for this reason. In the wise words of Bill Clinton, mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of, but stigma and bias change us all. I will now be focusing on the 3 types of stigmas that people with mental illness face and the negative effects that these stigmas carry. The first stigma is the self-stigma. Self-stigma affects one's own perception. It can lead to a distorted and negative self-view. It causes them to be afraid to ask for help, to feel that others are always judging them, causing co-occurring disorders and a sense of guilt and shame. This self-stigma also is factored in because it stems from a larger stigma, which is the social stigma. The social stigma consists of harmful stereotypes. For example, the stereotype that mentally ill people are inherently dangerous or unpredictable and that they should be feared. Mass media worsens this by providing for a platform for all these false stereotypes to spread and cause more harm. A lack of public education is also one of the reasons for these stereotypes. There's also this get over it mentality, which I will go into a little bit more in this slide. The get over it mentality, let me put it this way. Are you drowning? Just swim. Are you having an asthma attack? Just breathe. Are you depressed? Just be happy. This is ridiculous. It's a complete logical fallacy, and it makes no logical sense for you to tell a drowning person to just swim. The whole point of drowning is that you are unable to stay afloat, that you are unable to swim. When you are clinically depressed, you are unable to be happy. Your body is unable to create that dopamine that you need to feel happy. And this get over it mentality is especially harmful to people with mental illnesses because it makes it seem like their mental illness is their fault and that they need to use sheer willpower alone to overcome it, which just simply is not the case. Next, I will get into the structural stigma. Now, this stigma is relating to restrictive government policies. For example, government policies that lead for insurance not covering mental health expenses. There's also like a workplace stigma that leads into this systematic type of stigma in which many workers, 1 in 4, reported having to choose between getting the mental health treatment they need and paying for basic necessities. This is a choice that no one should be forced to make because if they can't take care of their basic needs, then they can't take care of their mental health needs. They're not independent and they're not mutually exclusive. They're connected. If you're not eating well, how are you supposed to treat your anorexic disorder? Additionally, There is so much lost productivity because of these mental illnesses, especially in the workplace. Serious mental illness costs Americans 193 billion in lost earnings each year. Oftentimes, employees fear an unfair dismissal if they try to seek help for their mental illnesses or if they try to share with their employers that I have a mental illness because of this stigma and the stigma that mentally ill people can't do as good as a job as people without mental illnesses. The stigma that mentally ill people are not a good culture fit in the workplace and they shouldn't be there. The stigma that mentally ill people, because they can't do as good of a job, should be paid less. And this also feeds into the fact that um, employers need to be doing more to support their employees and their mental illnesses. And that there needs to be this education about what mental illness truly is so that there can be this discussion and not a fear or a taboo of the stigma. Now, you might be saying we're doing enough to help already, but that's not true because the National Institute of Mental Health faced a nearly $200 million cut to their already small budget of $2 billion. Now, this may seem like a lot of money, but when you factor in all the costs and all the prescriptions and all the psychiatrist appointments, therapy, mental illnesses are extremely costly, and this budget is not nowhere near enough to truly support those with mental illnesses. So, what can you do to help? Uh, the National Alliance on Mental Health, otherwise known as NAMI, is a foundation and an organization that strives to provide advocacy, education, support, and public awareness to help support those with mental illnesses. They want to combat the burdens of mental illnesses and help those who are mentally ill fight the two battles, one against the mental illness that they have, and two against the stigma by raising awareness for these causes. And they ultimately strive to help people with mental illnesses build better lives for them and their families who are also affected by their family members having a mental illness. Now, if you could, please pull out your phones and scan this QR code, which will take you to the NAMI website. And there you will see an option for you to donate, but you don't have to. But just know that if you do feel comfortable with donating, they will match your donation 100% up to $100,000 until 2022. And on this website, you'll also find a lot of great resources which explain how exactly you should approach it if you know someone who's suffering from a mental illness, what kinds of conversations you should have to them, things you should say to them, like I'm here to support you, and things you shouldn't say to them, like, oh, just be happy. Um, and lastly, please don't forget that these mental illnesses are more often than not naked to the or invisible to the naked eye. And you can't always tell. This image does a great job at depicting that you can't always tell who has a disability or who has a mental illness. They can just be in this room. They can just be um, living their normal lives, and you would never know unless you truly got to know them and you saw the signs that they had a mental illness and you were there and you understood that the stigma would prevent them from seeking the help they need so that you would be there to offer support to them. I'd like to close with everyone just taking a quick moment to think about someone in their life who they haven't talked to in a while. It could be a friend or a loved one. And after class, I really want you to pick up the phone and give them a call. Because after all, sometimes those of us with the biggest smiles have been suffering the most. Thanks, Juan.
Oh, Juan's back. Okay. What'd you think?